Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session 55. It's dawned on me that, sort of in the goal to make it a year, that I could almost do a little riff each episode about the number that we're at. And that may be tedious for some and also not much of a launch pad for a topic, if that's where this is headed. And it also dawns on me that once you hit like 100 or 101, let's say, that would be an exercise in redundancy, and then numbers of significance, I'd have to really know prime numbers and or certain things to have any of that stuff mean anything. So I guess I'm going to ride the number for a launch pad. And as we're at 55, that can be a speed limit. It can be an awful Sammy Hagar song. I can't drive 55. I hate to be saying awful because that is part of the theme. So I Can't Drive 55, which is an old ass song for a certain ilk. And I just think that particular song is more of a melodyless rant about him liking to drive fast. And then that would lead me down the sort of path of music snobbery and all that. And for me to say anything other than Sammy Hagar is an accomplished and an incredible musician is really disingenuous. Now, I guess matters of taste are always there, but the dude can play mad guitar. He's been a headliner for 45 years. He's been in many bands. He's been in Van Halen, and he has a voice that I don't find particularly pleasing to my ear, but the range itself, where it is on the fucking staff, it's like above C, and he still has it after 70, and there is that sort of Van Halen stuff that he did that has some jams, because Eddie could really orchestrate, play, and arrange, and really was other than the collaboration of his brother on the drums and Sammy on the singing, Eddie really put that shit together in the studio, and I like the sound of that stuff. And it was never anything. This is how you know you're old, when you had to buy music, and when you had to spend $15-20 per album or per CD. I never bought albums. I bought cassettes and CDs. When you had to spend that fucking kind of money, kind of vibing on a couple of Van Halen tracks, it was prohibitive. I couldn't just say, I don't really dig it, but that fucking, Dreams is kind of a jam. The one with the Blue Angels. Now I can appreciate music because I can literally just, like, when I want to do some push-ups, I can rock out to some Van Halen, and I don't have to have it in my collection. I just wasn't able to. I mean, when I went to Tower Records, it was to buy one fucking album. Out of all the music I love and worship and the way I use it nowadays, that's a hard decision. And that has to be a good album, and it has to, and then there was the phase of having to have music that was helpful for the romance, all right? The kind of cassettes I brought to college were, to let the ladies know I was setting a mood and all this shit. Anita Baker, you know what I mean? The Gap Band. Enya was for like a little bit more of a new age type of vibe, and I was into the Gypsy Kings, and all that shit was to offer like worldly musical taste. And so, I would add that, but now you can literally just do Gypsy Kings channel, and it'll coincide with a bunch of other stuff, and you got yourself a playlist. And that, I think, a music fan, although commerce and corporations always get in there and make it fucking tedious and hard, and if money were no object, you probably wouldn't beef about it. But the idea that I literally can make playlists, which was the arduous task of a mix CD, you can have nostalgia for that was a time in your life when you had enough romance to make someone a mix CD or a mix tape, but it's it's better now for the real music head who just wants to hear Soul Asylum one day and Harry Chapin the next day and then Stevie B the next day. It's better now. It's just that I'm not, trying to romance and try to cover a swath of hip chicks and, Luther Vandross and all that stuff. But my sentiment about Sammy Hagar and I Can't Drive 55 in the speed limit and having a critical sense of his music not being great is, and that is, I say it's incorrect even though an opinion is not fact checkable. There's a very funny interview a long time ago with Bill Burr. He's got plenty of material out there, but he was he was talking about Joel Osteen, who problems with that commercialized profiteering in the pulpit that's nothing new. And then there's the idea that I guess he's attributed with this thing called the prosperity gospel, which is that it's godly to stack checks and to stack paper and to covet mass funds. I don't know. I can't comment on that. I just know on the shallow dive is that's Joel Osteen kind of represents the prosperity gospel, and maybe money isn't the root of all evil. I don't know. I'd like more, and I could probably do more with it and be more magnanimous, probably. But Bill Burr was sort of riffing on that and talking shit about that. But then he said, the dude, he's like, I don't know. I just can't. I don't think you can shit on a fucking arena act. So, like, the fact that Joel Osteen's got that following, that he packs them in, it's kind of player to player, headliner to headliner. You can't fake that funk. And at the high levels of things, matters of taste are kind of blurry, and it's really a game recognizing game. And so the idea that perhaps Sammy Hagar didn't get good reviews in the in Rolling Stone means very fucking little to his roadies, and means very little to his packed arenas, and means very little to his resting place in the career as a musician. And that, and I'd like to say, and I'd like to live in that world of I guess appreciation versus hateration. And as I figure out what the hell I'm doing with the desk session, and funny enough, I was trying to show a blooper to my girlfriend, who doesn't watch all of these, by the way. And many years ago, I would have taken that as a sign that there's a fucking part, you need to support me. I'm like, she doesn't need to watch me run my mouth. She gets a front row seat for that. But she's very patient. But I had to show her a blooper because last week a light fell over while I was really grooving, and it was like, bloop, and it went out, and it showed the contrast. I was trying to show her the contrast between a well-lit scenario, which I don't even know if it's well-lit because I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm figuring it out. I'm trying to use fills and reflectors and all this shit. And I know direct light is probably bad for a pale face like myself. So I'm working it out, but the light fell over the battery died because I didn't. Now I have everything connected to a power source. So, fingers crossed, we'll make it through. And if we don't, but, my girl doesn't watch him, and I was trying to show her, and she goes, how long is this? I said, I'm just going to scroll. And she goes, how do you talk that long? And I'm like, do you even know me, man? Do you even know me? And so I guess to a degree, that is what and where and why I should keep doing this for my own benefit, is because wearing people out or feeling like you aren't being heard, then just fucking belt it, sing it to the rafters. Most artists, I should be careful, many artists do have a background that does include a need for attention. Is, that if I were such an attention person, I'd post a lot more. I'd do a lot more of these. I'd be more active in social media. But I think attention is the shallow version of needing to be heard, right? Or hoping and praying or being nostalgic or sentimental about people getting you, man. Nobody really gets me, man. And so, but I think there's some progress in the fact that I do not require and or need any more than her love and support as it occurs in its way and in the way that it does. And so, there's that notion that, like, for example, I'm waiting for her reaction to my one-man show to be, after I've rehearsed it, memorized it, performed it, and hopefully blow her mind, That's why I'm withholding people reading it before. I have a close friend and a few invited people got to hear this rough draft of it, and that is the ingot of hearing it for the first time that they won't ever be able to experience again unless I completely do a page 1 rewrite. So I've basically told her to hold off reading it because I don't need your approval. If I need her approval after all these years, then what are we doing? And I think that is a bit of a sign. And the fact that she sees the clips, and I don't think she's watched many of these, and I can't blame her. I understand her attention spans are different these days. And then the converse of that is anybody who does watch these and gets anything out of them is thank God, and what a cool thing. And another technical issue that's been made apparent to me is I am not doing a lot of this stuff correctly as far as I can tell. I'm trying to amass some information from how to properly do YouTube. I mean, eventually people do 2 cameras, and so that would mean I'm using my laptop as I speak. I'm using a QuickTime recording, which means I can't jump in and I can't pause it. I would have to edit them together. I can't just once I hit stop, it creates a file. And so the cool part of that, which is inadvertent but newly discovered when I had the option to stop when the light went down, but I kept going. And so you get to see the naked light bulb version of the face, or I deemed it less important to react than to adjust. And because of the limitations of the software I use and the camera and the laptop and all that shit, I kept going. But what it does is it is the format I'm trying to create is, this is off the dome, which is a phrase I overuse, but it is a race, or it is a test of stamina to the ideas I'm saying. Each episode is a space bar to start, a space bar to stop. And while I know on YouTube that probably needs some editing, and I know on YouTube many people put a camera off to the side just so that there's a visual, your brain, it doesn't just hear a guy droning on direct camera. Hopefully and ultimately, I don't even think of this as a visual thing. It's just that YouTube is the easiest means of producing and the easiest means of publishing. So I'm really hoping that if anybody listens to this in binges or in a weekly anticipation, that they are really just tuning in on the audio and the fact that it could be a simultaneous thing. And that's how I am digesting. A lot of the podcasts I listen to are video and audio, and I just run it and I don't bother with the video. But and I got a lot to figure out in more ways than one, if you can only imagine, in these trying times. And I don't know that they're trying. I don't know when times weren't trying. And I think that is part of why I don't want to be the critic anymore. I don't want to critique. I don't want to say I Can't Drive 55. It's just a song I don't like. It's not a bad song. How could I, a non-songwriter, really weigh in on that? I can sing and I can play like 8 chords on a guitar. Sammy Hagar can get people out of their seats regardless. So, and one day, the aspiration is that, and it has to happen soon just because I got a finite amount of life left in me, but one day, soon, somehow, I have to enter the marketplace of peer group. I have to change my peer group or climb into a different peer group, I suppose, And that is why I know there's a famous article or book, I don't remember. And this goes back, now this is a dovetail into Van Halen. There was either it was Studio 54 or it was Max's Kansas City or it was CBGB or something, but there is a famous photo, or it's a recollection of a fan or someone on the street in New York seeing Joe Strummer of The Clash and David Lee Roth of Van Halen like chumming it up, probably all gacked out of their minds, either coming out of Studio 54 or Max's Kansas City or CBG somewhere. And the idea that like, how dare they cross streams of social cultural relevance. The Clash is a serious fucking band. Van Halen, Daily Roth is a hedonist, a Dianite. Like they shouldn't, like that you have to live your ethos, or that they're not just rock stars and peers. And why wouldn't they kick it? And what the fuck do we care? And what the fuck do they give a shit? They're fucking rocking and rolling. And that's kind of what it comes down to, and they're peers, and that's about it. Whether we have their patch on the back of our denim jacket or a pin on our bomber jacket, I would definitely be in the Clash camp. But, like I said, if I didn't have to declare back in the day and raise a flag, like or adorn my notebooks, or, have very limited ability. And it was a lot of, the identity was your concert t-shirt you wore to school the next day if you were so lucky. And so I, when I went into the Bruce obsession, that was my identity, Sorry, I hate people fucking gulping, but I'm dying because I have to turn the AC off to get the sound quality. Anyway, I guess I've been toiling a bit with emotions and rages, and so I don't know if comedy was a gift or an undesigned byproduct of how I go about myself. It was even in drama school where I was frustrated and often lauded by professors that I had a natural knack for comedy, which would be belied by the fucking seriousness of the things we were studying. And there was seldom an outlet, and it was only when I was able to sort of freely express that the comedy could be a thing. And so I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I might want to lighten up a little bit in the desk sessions, because maybe it's not a therapist's couch. It was an accountability. It was an accountability vlog, and my progress is now, it's. I almost want to forget that that's what I started with, because I got to turn up the heat. I got to turn up the heat on so many things. It seems, and I need to not mollify myself or placate myself or self-soothe myself with the illusion of progress or the illusion of productivity, because I have made it to 52, which is something, but not the same stated goal as to get my show going. It's a many-fangled thing, and it's a very tricky thing, and it's perplexing me at the moment. I don't want to do busy work. I want to do work that penetrates, that can help me, finally kind of cash in the chips. One of the nicest things ever said to me in an acting class by my recent teacher, Robert Colt. He said, man, you got the lottery ticket. You just need to cash it. And I think that's true for all of us, right? I guess, in the lottery ticket being born healthy, if we're lucky, or being born at all life, And he was saying it vis-a-vis talent, talent to act, having a good day in class, that kind of thing. And I guess I have to, rather than just share that nugget and inspiration, I have to get the impediment out of the way for the reason why it feels to me that it hasn't been cashed in yet, And I guess to get back now, this was, didn't I just declare this shit was going to be funny? And now I'm getting maudlin again, which is part of why I want to do a one-man show and not do stand-up anymore, is I do want to ride the wave of emotion. And I've said this before on this format, the comedy and tragedy are the masks, and they are under the heading of drama. So that's how I see it. And so when you're doing stand-up, you're the funny mask, and you kind of shun the dark mask. And when you're trying to do drama, which doesn't have to be sad, and that's the problem with television, is that, there's not a lot of fucking laughter on Law and Order, because that's a procedural drama. And, and we get to say, and the artist gets to say, I suppose. But and that's academia said to Shakespeare. I don't know. I guess he did say it was a comedy when he said, and, The Merchant of Venice is a comedy. And not to blow up her spot, but one of the really admirable things my girl's doing these days is she's going back to school, and she's studying sort of just random classes. And she's taken a Shakespeare class, and everybody who's been through drama school thinks they know and loves to talk the shit that they remember. And if you had a good memory and you were leaned more toward being good at English than math, you would, your shit about Shakespeare. And there's still stuff I can do right off the dome. And the minute she said her first assignment was Hamlet, I gave her, "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I." And then I told her that, in Hamlet is the character Polonius, and he's the one who says neither a borrower nor a lender be. That's from Hamlet. To be or not to be, obviously, and slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and things like that. All these things, she's going to kind of get a college level course, but her father passed away recently, and she had a memory to share that he was fluent with some of it. And I don't want to share her story, but one of the sweetest and kind of inspiring things she said is, she's like, "I think I'm going to find my dad in Shakespeare," because he loved the words himself, and he could speak them from memory also. And I thought, wow, what a way, and what a thing we mortals can do, and what Shakespeare couldn't do. And it's my contention that minimally he was an enlightened person, and he's on a pedestal in English language and in writing, but I think it's more than that with him. And if I guess I have any adherence to a spirituality, it can be sort of based in my art and in theater, as it were. And I talk about that in the show, that but a lot of the mass performances of a mass are theatrical for a reason. And Springsteen is steeped in Catholic imagery for a reason. And the Pentecostal church under the tent and the preacher and the monologuing and the catching the spirit and all that stuff is a performance, and from a theatrical birth, I think, Thespis being the first of the chorus to go solo. The homie was feeling it in his whatever Latin or whatever fucking ancient dead language they were doing, dominoes, and he was just like, you know what? And he got in the middle and he just started going off, and he's probably had his ass beat for daring to go off the dome again. Here we go. But that's where it comes from. And when my girlfriend can say, I'm going to find my dad in Shakespeare, that's beautiful. And that is across centuries. And that is what we can do. And that is what Sammy Hagar can do for people. And I guess you would never put Shakespeare and Sammy Hagar in the same sentence. And that's my point about it, is why fucking not? And as we fight through all these differences of opinion, if you can't at minimum say, I can't stand it, but I'm so happy that the dude rocks the mic whether you like it or not. That's being open-minded to at least understand that somebody can vibe off of something you can't vibe off of. And that what art really does is through the generations and through the decades and through the centuries and through translation and through time and space itself and loss and wars and the things that happen to each and every one of us, that writing art through that you can go back to Shakespeare and she can find her dad in the words somewhere, and I think that's available to all of us. And it's maybe why it takes me a long time to get off the proverbial starting block, or why my output is what it is, because I am operating from that classical training, and then that just makes it's why I'm confused, to be honest, as an elder. I'm confused with the formats that are now the predominant formats. Shakespeare's a fucking 5-act structure, and it's theater. What what would he, if he were around today, he'd at least be writing a fucking probably screenplay or sticking with the theater. I don't know. But TikTok, which I don't do, or Instagram, like a reel, like that is a format. I'm sorry. And it is where the quote unquote popular culture, popular art has gone. And I want to participate, but I am trained classically to think about writing and think about traveling through centuries with your work. And I hope that's not me being excusing myself for whatever my lacks are. It's got to mean that much to me, each and every effort has to mean that much to me. And I guess once art and commerce combine, and you owe a record label an album, or you have a 3-picture deal, and I think I have to start seeing myself as half full, half lucky that I am still on the outside of that, because I don't know what compromises I would make if it was an obligation. Now, the pressure may be a good thing. Deadlines are very helpful, and you'd be surprised what you can come up with. But if you have to make a compromise, or if you have to submit something that's half cooked, I don't have those problems. But maybe Sammy Hagar did. Even Shakespeare did, because he had a hungry audience in his time for his works. But that's why he makes it through the centuries. And who knows, And if you're a nihilist and you're not going to be here to enjoy it, I would also like to have some fun in the interim and in my space and time, and be able to enjoy my craft as a means to provide sustenance for myself and for my audience. And so I guess tinkering with the lights and wondering what I'm going to say, and giving it at least this sort of effort of one take. This is one take. It's going to be unedited, unfiltered. It's going to go in directions, and I hold back because I don't want to polarize. And if the most controversial thing I've said today is I think I Can't Drive 55 sucks. If I can't stand on that and worry about Hagerites or whatever, then what's the point? But my primary goal is to entertain and or to elucidate and enliven and ponder. And it's pretty impressive, I think, that my girl is there's a reason she's interested in this Shakespeare, and that's pretty phenomenal. And it makes me, hope she finds it. And my wish is that she gets, kind of as turned on as I did. I had the privilege of, I studied with Patrick Stewart. That was my first introduction to Shakespeare, probably even before they started making us read it in high school. I guess a sophomore year, maybe we did Romeo and Juliet, but I got to study Shakespeare with Patrick Stewart. It was the summer before I think he booked Deep Space Nine. I think that was the one, or Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think he was Captain Picard, but the summer before he was just a English actor looking to pay his rent, and he had a gig at this theater camp that I went to. I don't want to call it a camp because that diminishes. It was a theater institute, and that turned me on to be able to understand that shit. And I guess as things get abbreviated and text, THX is thanks, I guess, it's quaint to think of language, being, I used to think, I use emojis and shit like I'm fucking 18 years old, but language does morph, and it is really just a technology in itself. And I think art and any quest for truth or what have you is just a refinement as close as we can get to. And why I think a lot of filmmakers and theater makers, I think why that art form even more so than all of them, because they're collaborative and they combine music and writing and sometimes dance or whatever. There are hopefully beyond words, there is a communication beyond words, and I am very fearful of AI's impacts, and I don't know, but there's nothing I can do. And the idea of being telepathic has occurred to me in times of great sorrow. That fatigue of emotions, of the kind of stuff one has to do to get through these tragedies of life when people pass, and wakes, and entertaining people when you're at your lowest, and all that stuff I remember saying, I really wish I could just be like, can we not do this right now? I'm too tired. I just want to eat this plate of food and just shoot you like the download of like what's going on in me, so you can get it, and telepathically you'd be like, I'm so sorry, dog. I didn't know you were going through that. So that maybe ideally post-language, post-literate, maybe that will put us in a better place. Maybe we'll be able to communicate better when we lose words and have other ways. Because really, after all the spewing of words in Shakespeare, like the stories and the plots still are the thing people take away from it. And I don't know. I hope there is a pathway to say what I feel, get better at saying what I feel, communicate and elucidate and educate and entertain, and I guess I just leave it with I hope my girlfriend finds what she's looking for in the beauty of Shakespeare's words. And that's a death session and something going out on YouTube, which is literally like people like putting Tide Pods in their nostrils. And I'm talking about Shakespeare, but hey, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. And that's how it's going to be for Death Session 55. I can't drive 55. Let's go. Rock out. Go get something done this week. Peace.